Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something, well, pretty fundamental to achieving just about anything: willpower.
Hmm.
You, our listener, suggested we explore a book called Power of Will, and honestly, it's packed with some really fascinating ideas about this inner resource we all mention, but, maybe don't fully get how to build.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what really jumped out at me from Power of Will is that it doesn't treat willpower like some fixed thing you're born with.
Right.
Instead, it talks about it as a kind of mental energy, something you can actually cultivate, make stronger, kind of like how a muscle gets stronger with exercise.
Mm.
The book really lays out a whole system for, improving yourself by developing these mental abilities.
Yeah, and our goal here in this deep dive is really to pull out the core principles, the actionable stuff from this book for you. Think of it like a shortcut, maybe, giving you the essence of power of will, its philosophy, how you might use it, without you having to wade through the whole thing yourself. I have to say, I was really curious about this idea that willpower isn't just, something you either have or you don't, that you can work on it. So, okay, where does the book start us off on this journey?
Well, it kicks off with this pretty powerful core idea.
Yeah.
Well, this energy reserve inside us.
Okay.
It says it can be weak, sure, but it can also be developed or even become, incredibly strong.
Mhm.
And to make this point, it gives these really compelling examples, like Muli Molu, the Moorish leader.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, he was super ill, like gravely ill, but he still managed to rally his troops for this crucial victory right before he died. That surge of leadership, pushing past physical limits, the book presents that as him tapping into this deep well of will.
Wow, that's quite a story. And wasn't there another one, Blondin, the tightrope walker? Yeah.
Exactly. Blonde and performing these incredible feats, walking the tightrope, even while dealing with severe back pain,
Yeah.
just enduring that kind of physical agony through sheer mental strength. It really drives home this idea of will as this potent force we can actually draw on.
Hmm.
These aren't just meant to be like inspiring anecdotes. They're supposed to show the reality of this stored reserve energy we have.
Right, that it's a real capacity.
And importantly, the book immediately follows that up with a critical point. Just reading about its energy. Not enough.
Ah, okay.
It's kind of like reading about workout routines, but never actually, going to the gym. The only way, it argues, to genuinely boost your mental strength, your willpower, is through actual consistent practice,
Hmm.
actively exercising your brain power.
So no passive learning here. You got to engage. And I thought it was interesting how the book actually suggests doing an initial read through first, almost casually,
Yeah.
just to get the general vibe, the concepts. And then only after that, go back and really methodically work through the exercises it lays out. It's like scouting the territory before you start the serious hike.
That's a great analogy.
Hmm.
And the book frames this whole thing, its entire approach, as the highest human science,
Okay.
which it defines as the science of practical individual culture,
Mm-hmm.
basically the science of developing yourself. And then it calls the highest human art the are making the most of yourself, your potential, your life's work. It's all part of this bigger picture, the science art of successful being, successful living, successful doing.
That sounds pretty ambitious, a science art. And it breaks this down into these 8 highways of power. Is that right? Sounds very structured.
It is. It provides a kind of framework for development.
Yeah.
These highways include things like cultivating bodily and mental health,
Mm-hmm.
developing dauntless courage and confidence, mastering the controlled whirlwind, which seems to be about channeling your energy effectively,
Mhm.
achieving symmetrically great willpower, nurturing, variously growing mind power, harnessing physical and psychic magnetism, which I guess is about influence, your presence,
Right. Charisma, maybe?
sort of, yeah. Then expanding practical ability, and finally striving for what it calls the Arthurian white life, which seems to imply, a life of high moral standards, integrity.
Wow. Okay. That is quite a roadmap. Comprehensive. And it says all this serves a double goal. What's that about?
Ah, the double goal. It's about achieving supreme personal well-being and actual financial betterment.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just inner peace or something abstract.
No, exactly. It connects the internal growth very directly to improving your practical situation, your material well-being in the world.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got will as energy, the need for practice, these 8 areas or highways leading to personal and financial improvement. But let's dig a bit deeper. What does the will actually do, according to the book? What are its specific functions, its actions?
So the book describes will primarily as the mind's power of self-direction. how you guide yourself.
Okay.
And it says this shows up in different ways, different forms for different situations. There's uh, explosive will for those sudden bursts you need sometimes.
Right.
Decisive will, making firm choices, sticking to them. Impelling will, that's the driving force, pushing you forward. Restraining will, holding back, impulses.
The breaks.
Yeah, exactly, the brain. Then deliberative will for careful thought, planning, and persistent will, the ability to just keep going despite obstacles. And it argues these different types are all connected to our physical state, our mental state, even our moral condition.
So it's not just one thing. It's like a toolkit of abilities we can use in different ways. And generally speaking, what does having a strong, well-developed will let us do?
Well, the book boils it down to three main things. First, mastery over your physical body. Second, lordship over your mental abilities, your focus, your sharpness.
Lordship.
Yeah, and third, it acts as the guide for your moral self. It calls it the high priest of the moral self.
Taking charge on all levels: body, mind, morals. Got it. Now, the book mentions tests of will. What kind of things does it present as ways to test or demonstrate this inner strength?
Often, these tests revolve around two key ideas: inhibition and concentration.
Okay, inhibition, like stopping yourself.
Exactly. The ability to consciously hold back. It gives examples like a criminal feigning death to escape, or someone suppressing a wince from pain, or even just resisting a craving for something unhealthy. The book really emphasizes how will lets us control our habits, even those little mannerisms we think are automatic.
So it's that internal stop button. And the other big test is concentration. That seems key.
Absolutely. Concentration is shown as another major way willpower manifests. And the book uses some really striking stories here.
Like what?
There's the sculptor, David, apparently has such intense focus he could create this vivid mental image of someone almost instantly. And then there's Blind Tom, the musical genius, who could supposedly replay complex pieces perfectly after just one listen. These examples are meant to show the, extraordinary levels of focus a powerful will makes possible.
Those are incredible examples of focus. The book also talks about sustained thinking as a sort of higher level of will, doesn't it? More than just a quick moment of focus.
Yes, exactly. Sustained thinking requires that deep, persistent immersion in a topic. It mentions Napoleon's intense, unbroken concentration on military strategy,
Right.
and Senator Carpenter, who could just completely absorb himself in complex legal arguments right before a trial. It's that ability to really dedicate your mental energy, stick with a problem or an idea until you've truly grappled with it.
Okay. Now, something many of us struggle with is finding interest in things we know are important but just don't, grab us naturally. How does power of will suggest we use willpower to actually cultivate interest or even improve memory?
Yeah, that's a good point. The book acknowledges that if you're already interested, concentration is easier, obviously. But, it argues, you can actively create or enhance interest through determined effort, through will. By resolutely focusing your attention on something, even if it seems dull at first, you can often find aspects that do catch your attention. It's like pushing through that initial boredom to find something engaging.
So you can kind of will yourself to be interested. That's interesting in itself. What about memory? How does will fit in there?
The book claims that a strong will shows up in how good your memory is. It contrasts just passively, listlessly repeating something.
Right, like cramming for a test.
Yeah, versus actively forcing your attention and interest onto it. There's a phrase it uses, remember. Yes, remember. Sort of captures that active-willed command to your mind to hold on to the information. It's not passive absorption, it's active retention.
And this ties into something called luminous mental vision. Sounds a bit out there. What's the connection?
It does sound a bit mystical, yeah. But the book connects this luminous mental vision to the power of will. It uses Goethe as an example, his amazing ability to vividly recall and visualize details of artists he'd studied.
Okay.
The book suggests that while maybe that intense level of visualization is a natural gift for some, a more general ability to create clear, useful mental pictures that can definitely be developed through focused, willed effort.
It's really striking how much control the book suggests we have over developing these mental skills. But then it points out that we often just neglect it, right? We just hope willpower shows up when we need it.
Exactly. The author's pretty critical about us leaving will development basically to chance. Likens it to Topsy in Uncle Tom's Cabin, who just growed.
Right.
The book asks some challenging questions like, why do we know willpower is crucial for success, but spend so little conscious effort actually building it? Why do we often wait for failures or setbacks to somehow magically strengthen it for us?
That's a fair criticism. We train our bodies, we go to school, but this core mental strength often gets overlooked. And the book links this neglect to real downsides, doesn't it?
It does. It really emphasizes that the moral will, which it sees as the highest form, needs constant, deliberate thought about our plans, our methods, our ultimate aims. It argues that successful living really depends on that focused intention, that this one thing I do mindset. Neglecting it leads to, well, less successful living.
Okay, so we get it. Will is vital, often underdeveloped. Let's get practical. What are the actual strategies Power of Will gives us for strengthening this thing?
Right, the how-to. Well, it highlights several key areas. First, self-assurance is important, and aligning your goals with what you can actually do.
Being realistic.
Yeah, it warns against setting impossible tasks, because repeated failure can actually weaken your resolve. And it stresses that will needs intelligence alongside it. Just having a strong will isn't enough if you're, directing it foolishly.
Makes sense. You need the engine and the steering wheel. What about specific mental habits or attitudes?
It recommends consciously cultivating certain mindsets, like literally telling yourself, I resolve to will, regularly, and actively nurturing what it calls the mood of energy, trying to maintain this inner feeling of power and determination. It also tackles fickleness of will, that tendency we have to start strong but then fade. It stresses needing sustained focus, persistent effort.
That's a big one for a lot of people, I think. What if you just don't believe you have much willpower? That lack of confidence.
The book suggests that often comes from underestimating the will's natural strength and its ability to bounce back. It emphasizes that will is an inherent power, always being replenished. So, building trust in your own ability to use your will is key. Plus, it makes the point that working on one mental skill often helps others too. They're all connected.
Ah, so it's like a rising tide lifts all boats in your mind. And the core idea seems to keep coming back. Will grows through exercise, like a muscle. Mental and physical exercise.
Exactly. Every time you consciously make yourself do something, even small things, you're strengthening that willpower muscle. The book also brings up Professor James's advice, occasionally doing something difficult or unpleasant just for the sake of it.
Right, the insurance.
Yeah. Building that mental toughness, that resilience, so your will is ready when you face real challenges. It trains your will to act even when part of you resists.
This seems to link into the mind-body connection. How does the book handle that relationship?
It definitely acknowledges that our mental states hugely influence our physical health, and that genuine belief is critical if you want to make changes. But interestingly, it also offers a bit of a critique of what it calls mental science back then.
Oh, how so?
It suggests some of those approaches might oversimplify the mind over matter idea, maybe not fully grasping the complexities of the physical world.
So it's not just think positive and everything will be perfect.
No, not quite that simple. The book emphasizes how our moods affect our mental work. So cultivating positive moods, like a mood of feeling or interest, can actually create a better environment for your willpower to function effectively. It's about setting the stage for determination to thrive.
Okay. Power of Will also has these general rules for conducting life with will. Sounds like practical life advice.
Very practical. The first set of rules includes things like be master of your own will, or when in doubt, do nothing. Wait for light to come.
Patience.
Yeah. Cultivate perfect calmness. Never yield to temper. Make no decision when out of temper. The whole thrust is about maintaining conscious control over your reactions, your emotions, so you can act more deliberately, more willfully.
Those sound like solid principles for just navigating life better, willpower aside. The book also mentions our deeper self and using mental affirmations.
Absolutely. It stresses that real self-development isn't just about your conscious actions. You need to train your subconscious mind too.
How?
By regularly, intentionally affirming positive principles like rules of conduct you want to live by. The idea is that this helps internalize them, making them more automatic, more deeply ingrained in how you operate.
Now, the book talks about personality being key to greatness. How does it define personality in this context? It sounds a bit different from how we might use the word today.
Yeah, it's a specific definition. The book basically says greatness comes from personality, which it defines as sort of potentiated humanity. Humanity with unusual intensity.
Intense humanity.
Yeah. The idea is that the highest form of life involves this really intense consciousness, combined with a free, full expression of your feelings, your thoughts, and your actions.
So living fully, intensely, consciously, and then it connects will training back to our physical senses. That's an interesting loop.
It is. The idea is that consciously using and exercising your senses with purpose actually helps build your willpower. It goes back to that core theme: practice intentional engagement.
How would that work?
It gives examples, like exercises for your eyes, consciously taking in your whole field of vision or focusing your gaze with real intention, putting soul into your look, as it says, or for your ears, actively trying to distinguish different sounds or deliberately choosing to focus on one sound while excluding others. It's all about directing your attention, your will, through your senses.
That's fascinating. Retraining how we perceive things to be more active, more willed. The book also tackles weak habits of thought. I imagine that's relevant for, well, most of us.
Definitely. The book argues that these weak, unhelpful thought patterns are a major cause of personal weakness and unhappiness. And it says will is crucial for breaking them. Through repetition of better thoughts, through keen attention to the change you want to make, and through a really strong desire to improve. It even gives specific little regimes for breaking habits, like swearing or constantly exaggerating.
So consciously overriding those old mental tracks and thinking itself, the act of forming opinions, is presented as an exercise of will.
Exactly. Developing your ability to think clearly, to form your own well-reasoned opinions that requires active will. It means putting in the mental effort, really reading to understand, observing things critically. It contrasts this with having a want of opinion, basically, not thinking things through, but also warns against opinionativeness.
What's that?
That's being stubborn in your views without good reason. A rigid will, driven by a blind soul, as the book colorfully puts it, not open to new information.
Ah, okay, so think actively, but stay open. Even something like public speaking gets the willpower treatment in this book, right? That's a common fear.
Yes, it argues that even if you're not a naturally gifted speaker, you can become good at it through focused effort and will.
What are the keys?
Things like really thinking through your topic in actual words, mentally, mental word using it calls it, not just outlining. Practice, obviously. Actively using your imagination to make your points vivid. Connect emotionally to what you're saying. It also tackles the fear issue head on, stressing the need for courage, which is, again, linked to will.
So control the situation through preparation, connection, and sheer determination. The book then moves to influencing others. This could sound a bit manipulative.
It approaches control of others, more from the angle of positive influence, based on understanding people and the power of genuine belief. Crucially, it emphasizes that mastering yourself morally is the real key to having a large positive influence on others. It quotes someone, Clarendon on Hampton, saying his amazing self-control gave him great power over other men's.
Ah, so it's influence through integrity and self-mastery, not trickery. And cooperation is important, too.
Absolutely. The book stresses cooperation, the golden rule, for long-term influence. It suggests that consciously cultivating qualities like politeness, patience, cheerfulness, all through will, makes you more agreeable and influential. It offers very practical tips, too. Don't show temper, avoid envy or sarcasm, be honest. Basic stuff for good relationships, really.
Sounds like solid advice for getting along with people generally. It even talks about cultivating a child's will. That's quite specific.
Yes, and the emphasis is on training and intelligently developing a child's will, not breaking it or just forcing them to obey.
How do you do that?
The key thing is answering their questions. The why, how, where, when, what, whose. Engaging their understanding enlists their will, makes them want to cooperate. It strongly advises against just shutting them down with, because I said so.
Right. Nurture their reasoning and agency. And the ultimate goal of all this whole system and power of will, is what it calls the symmetrical existence. What does that mean?
The symmetrical existence is the ideal state. It's where all parts of you, your physical side, your mental side, your moral side, are well-developed and working together harmoniously, all guided by your will, according to reason and morality.
Balanced.
Exactly. Balanced. It contrasts this with the unsymmetrical life, which it says is always flawed because some parts are neglected. The book basically ends by urging the listener, you, to actively figure out your own weak spots, develop your strengths, and strive for this balanced, will-directed life.
So it's a very holistic vision. Will as the conductor of the orchestra, bringing everything into harmony for a purposeful life.
That's a great way to put it. It's about actively shaping yourself, not just drifting.
Well, this has been a really illuminating deep dive into power of will. We've covered quite a bit the idea of will as this energy you can grow, how it affects everything from focus to influencing others, its role in well-being, and that constant theme of conscious effort being key to growth and achieving that symmetrical existence.
And we really hope this discussion has given you, our listener, a good handle on the book's core ideas. Maybe spark some thoughts about how these concepts could apply to your own goals, your own life.
Yeah. So maybe here's a final thought for you to chew on. Think about just one area, one specific part of your life where consciously applying these ideas about will, that deliberate effort, that persistent focus, where could that make the biggest positive difference for you? Which of your own highways of power feels like the right one to work on right now? Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.